Welcome back to the Medcurity podcast. Today, we want to take you inside something we see every single week, our security risk analysis walkthroughs. Specifically, I want to share what we're noticing when it comes to HIPAA's physical safeguards. These are things that don't live in software, dashboards, or policies, but in everyday workplaces. These issues are easy to overlook. They don't usually feel as urgent, and yet they consistently show up during SRAs and create real exposure for healthcare organizations. So today, we are going to walk through what we're seeing, why it matters, and how small adjustments can make a meaningful difference. When people think about HIPAA security, they almost always think about technology. Firewalls, passwords, software updates, multi-factor authentication. Physical safeguards don't always get the same attention, and it's not because people don't care, but it's because they blend into our daily routines. When you're moving quickly, seeing patients, answering phones, and juggling systems, it's easy to stop noticing what's happening around you. Over time, small shortcuts become normal, and that's exactly why physical safeguard issues come up so consistently throughout our security risk analyses. Across some of our recent SRA walkthroughs, there have been a handful of patterns that show up again and again. And these aren't dramatic failures or intentional negligence. These are just everyday habits that are quietly increasing risk. Let's walk through a few of the most common ones. One of the biggest issues that we see is workstations that store or access protected health information without encryption, especially when they're logged into generic user accounts. When devices aren't encrypted or when multiple people share the same login, accountability disappears and risk increases fast. Another common one we see is unlocked screens. A staff member steps away just for a second and relies on an automatic timeout to do the work of logging out. But during that window, patient information is still visible and accessible. We also regularly see passwords written on sticky notes or kept near workstations, sometimes for systems that directly access PHI. This usually comes from good intentions. People are trying to stay efficient, but written passwords undermine every other safeguard in place. Paper PHI is another big one. Forms left on desks, logbooks open on the front desk, documents sitting in inboxes throughout the day. Even organizations with strong electronic safeguards often underestimate how much paper PHI remains visible and accessible. Shred bins come up more often than you might expect too. We see bins that aren't locked, lids left open, or keys that are stored right on top of the bin. And the intention is there, but the execution creates exposure. And finally, IT closets. Doors are left open. Equipment is accessible to anyone walking by. These spaces often hold networking equipment, servers, or backup systems, and yet access isn't always restricted. Individually, none of these issues may feel catastrophic, but together, they can paint a picture that auditors will pay attention to. Physical safeguards matter because they're visible. Auditors don't need special tools to notice an unlocked screen or an open IT closet. They don't need logs to see paper PHI sitting out in the open. These are the kinds of things that shape how an organization's overall security posture is perceived and greatly increase your risk. And more importantly, these issues are preventable. Most of the time, fixing them doesn't require new technology or major investment. It just requires awareness and consistency. At Medcurity, we like to say creating a culture of compliance, right? The encouraging part of all of this is how straightforward the improvements usually are. Confirm that any workstation holding or accessing PHI is encrypted and tied to a named user, not a shared login. Make screen locking a cultural norm, not just a technical setting. Stepping away should always mean locking the screen, even briefly. Remove written passwords from desks and work areas and replace them with approved password management practices. Take a regular walk around the workplace and look for visible paper PHI. If you can see it, so can others. Make sure shred bins are actually secure, locked, used consistently, and not treated as temporary storage. And keep IT rooms closed with access limited to the designated staff who truly need to use it. These steps don't just strengthen physical safeguards, they strengthen your security risk analysis documentation and demonstrate intentional security practices. One of the most helpful questions that leaders can ask is a simple one. If someone walked through our space today, what would they notice? It's not what your policies might say, but what's actually visible in real time. That perspective shift alone can uncover risks before they ever show up in an SRA. Physical safeguards don't always get as much attention as technical ones, but they matter just as much. The good news is that small, intentional changes can significantly reduce exposure and strengthen your overall security posture. And if you want support walking through your own security risk analysis, our team at Medcurity is here to help. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time on the Medcurity podcast.